Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu notes utterances attributed to Presidency spokesperson Vincent Magwenya. This is in his response to Sisulu's call on President Cyril Ramaphosa to step aside pending the outcome of an investigation into the Phala Phala farm scandal. Now, Magwenya was quoted as saying Phala Phala was under investigation and you would expect cabinet members to know better, that we allow the investigations to be concluded before any pronouncements are made. For some reaction, we're now joined in studio by political analyst Dr. Clyde Ramalaine. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you to you for being here, and good day to your guests as well.
In the scathing statement, the tourism minister, ANC presidential hopeful Lindiwe Sisulu lambastes the president's spokesperson, essentially telling him to back off, know your place. How much substance is there to that? Because we're speaking about a government spokesperson, or how would that role work?
Well, I think we start off by appreciating the fact that we are in an election season. And in an election season, of course, you have people contesting for a position, or positions for that matter. Since it is the 55th conference of the ANC within the next 6 weeks or so, you would expect that there would be discussions, vibrant, engaging. And so, therefore, all those who have availed themselves are constantly speaking. You know, the interesting thing is that it's amazing how we are not listening to everybody speaking. When you go to social media, people are speaking. When you go wherever, people are speaking, even people who are contesting in this regard. Just before Minister Sisulu spoke, we had 3 presidents, former presidents, speak, and they spoke their minds. Now, how we can interpret that as politicking, we can interpret that whichever way, the fact of the matter is that they spoke. Now, on the subject matter of what Mr. Magwenya, who is a state official, did, I think there is a base for what Sisulu is arguing, because he is the president's spokesperson, the SA president's spokesperson. He's not the ANC's president's spokesperson. So we would expect that the president of the ANC would, at this point in time, because he's a contestant, yes, even though he's the incumbent, would have a campaign manager. And that campaign manager is supposed to address these issues. Now, when you have the blurring of party and state issues the way that it came out with Mr. Magwenya, it becomes cause for concern. And as you saw, Sisulu responded by virtue of Steve Motale, who's her spokesperson in that regard, because the presidency opened that gap now for that. And I think any other minister or any other person in office could do the same, because the precedent has been created in this regard. So I think it's a fair point to say that it was not Magwenya's responsibility to articulate himself to the extent that he did concerning a matter that engages the subject of the African National Congress in an election season. His job is clearly defined. He is the spokesperson of the SA president, not the ANC president.
Yeah. So should there have been ground for expectation of such a scathing response, knowing Minister Sisulu's conduct and how she reacts to things?
When you say if there was ground, you mean on the side of who now? On the side
looking at the presidency. Does this not come as a surprise, in other words? I mean, should this response have been expected? Because it is a scathing statement. If you read word for word, you'll see that it comes with a lot more, speaking to her saying that she wants to put it on record, that her criticism of President Cyril Ramaphosa is purely motivated by his poor performance as a leader.
Yes, but we have to, even that as a context, because had Magwenya not gone to the extent of soliciting that, by saying her utterances, whatever that may be, speaks to her own performance. That means he took the discussion there, and she spoke from that position. So I don't think it is scathing, because we should then say that what he did was scathing as well, unless we now want to define scathing based upon our preference. What Magwenya has done as the spokesperson to go down that route was to invite that kind of conversation and discourse at this point in time. So I think that once you open yourself up for that, you can expect that. We're in a silly season, by the way. We're in a season where a lot of things are at play here, and people are not just emotional, but people are feeling real about what is next for the African National Congress. Whether we like it or not, this next conference has to engage on the subject matter of the fitness of this particular president. That's what we are contending with right now.
Yes.
And when you hear, for example, Mbeki says that what happens in the event that the parliamentary panel finds against him, will the ANC wait until that moment to have a conversation, which is maybe in the next 2 weeks or so? Or what will happen? What will be the interventions? So there is a subject that need to be engaged, and that is the fitness, the performance of this president. And of course, the conference presents that opportunity. So in a contestation as we have seen currently, you would expect people to engage. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong to engage on the subject matter. As a matter of fact, there should be an evaluation of all. If we're talking about you are contesting to become, or you are contesting because you would like to remain.
Yes, because in the statement, Minister Sisulu also speaks to the role of the president. Under his administration, we're seeing the non-payment of ANC staffers' salaries, and also speaking to the question marks around Phala Phala. In fact, we have since learned that President will make his written submission to the independent panel by tomorrow, the 6th of November, which is the deadline.
Well, I think that's a different subject.
Yes.
One of the things that we get caught up with is the subject of processes. The president has, I consider the president loves to engage in what I call obfuscation. Mm-hmm. The president likes to explain himself in saying, but there are processes involved. Let me give you a classic example. When the issue was raised concerning former Minister of Health, Zweli Mkhize, Dr. Mkhize, when the subject was raised that there were concerns about digital vibes, SIU investigations, what did he do? He stepped aside. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, nobody pushed him, but he stepped aside. So that was, for me, that was someone engaging from the consciousness of, well, I've got to do this if I'm serious about whatever it is. Now, what makes the president so different that he can't step aside? What makes him so indispensable at this point in time that he can't do what Zweli Mkhize has done? Mm-hmm. That is a fundamental question. Yeah. And somehow we don't want to engage that because there is this discourse or there's this narrative in this society that without Ramaphosa, the ANC is dead. Without Ramaphosa, this country is going to go nowhere. And so the question is that true or is it not true? And so you and I have the right, ANC members have the right, ANC leaders have the right to ask the questions. If any other person was in the position of Cyril Ramaphosa at this point in time, given where the organization finds itself, mm-hmm. and we know the organization is not doing well, you have an organization that is in disarray completely. All its leagues are dysfunctional at this point in time as we speak. It's not a question of an if or a but about that. Yeah. The last standing league, which was the Women's League, which for me was, in a sense, a central league that for many, many years played a pivotal role, that in itself also became disintegrated because it appears that there's a particular agenda behind dysfunctionality that makes governance possible for a particular group of people. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at that, you look at the issue of that you've raised already concerning non-payment of staff. On the basis of what does the ANC stand up and say it can be the workers, it can leave the workers when it doesn't even regard the workers' contract it has with its own staff members? Mm-hmm. Now, yes, of course it happened in the past, no issue with regard to that. The subject matter, it is now almost like it seems like it's entrenched at this point in time. Yeah. And those are the things that the leadership of this president must be assessed at. The fact that the country finds itself where it finds itself, I'm not even dealing with Phala Phala, I'm dealing with why ANC members at this point in time, for example, like Mamluka Kubai, believe there should be no contest. Why should there be no contest when there have always been contests in the ANC? This is a time for contest. And let those who have availed themselves and those who were nominated, let them contest in a fair way. Make sure that money doesn't play a role, because you would know that this presidency was produced with money, whether we like it or not. Yeah. There's record evidence for that regard. We have currently sealed records on people that have funded this president. We still don't know, this country still don't know who funded the president. The ANC members don't know who funded him in this regard. So he's accountable to the ANC. We're not dealing with the country for now, we're dealing with the ANC. The last point is the subject matter of Phala Phala. if you look at Phala Phala from the point of view of its contribution to the negative contribution to the reputation of the ANC, on the basis of what would people still support him in that regard? If it was anybody else, they would have called for his head. So I'm saying there's a number of things here that we can't dispute. If Lindiwe Sisulu raises those issues, if she brings it to the fore, she could be considered to be arguing for our own presence or whatever. The point of fact is that you can't dispute that the president currently is finding himself in an invidious position, and it is not bidding well for the African National Congress. That's the reality. And it's around those issues, pertinent issues of leadership, that those who are delegates to this conference must go and engage. And when they engage on that, they must make an honest assessment of where the entity is. How far this issue of renewal had gone, how far factionalism is dealt with, how far the issue of the subject matter of its resolutions have been taken serious at a government level. Those are the issues that delegates of the conferences must contend with.
As you speak about the questions around who else can be considered in the run-up here, there's a branch in Limpopo that has put their hand up, backing mining mogul, businessman Patrice Motsepe, saying that he is not aligned to any factions. But they say, yes, he has assisted the ANC financially, but they believe that he's indeed the right man for the job.
Conference is a silly season, so you could get anybody's name. They could have him poor. Somebody, a branch from your area could ask for you to stand. Well, the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you're going to end up with a number of contestants, one or two contestants eventually, that will square off against the incumbent, the way I see it. And then from there you will get...
But perhaps, let me interrupt you, perhaps what I'm getting to, I mean, just using that example of Patrice Motsepe, we looking at the dynamics in Lesotho, they're different, yes, but what we saw is a businessman coming to the forefront and really garnering the support and giving Basotho essentially a new chapter. You know, they believe that he's the right man for the job, and he comes with a different profile. So essentially a businessman entering politics. I mean, you know.
Well, you would recall, if we backtrack, 2017 told us that we have a businessman who's a billionaire.
Yes.
Cyril Ramaphosa was a billionaire. He's a billionaire. He's a businessman. And look what it produced for us now. And notwithstanding COVID-19, notwithstanding the easily used subject of Ukraine and I call it rather the Russian NATO war that takes place in Ukraine. That's my understanding of it. So notwithstanding that, the subject matter is the country is not doing well. We don't have stability in energy supply, whether we like it or not. And we can have 1,000 commissions. We can have so many structures. The president announced 2 days ago a new structure that will now investigate or look at ministers. A new structure to look at this, ESCOM. A new structure. We don't need structures because all these structures cost money. I call that obfuscation. It's somebody who is not prepared or willing or incapable to make decisions that can take us forward, that hopes to dance around issues, kick the ball for touch, and hopefully all of this that has transpired so far won't affect him. But back to your subject matter. I can't decampaign anybody that has to. If it's Patrice Motsepe and he wants to stand and somebody nominated him, let 1,000 flowers bloom.
Thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now. Thanking you for coming to studio. Dr. Clyde Ramalaine, political analyst, really just dissecting some of the key central issues in the political sphere.